Marriage is glorious, it's beautiful, it's something to look forward to. But my friend, marriage can be tough. We've had some rough patches, so rough that on occasions we might have thought, let's pack it in. So today we're going to be sharing with you that one thing that changed everything for us.
Welcome to Relationship Real Talk, where we talk all things relationship, always keeping it real. I'm Mary Enyolu.
And I'm Julius Enyolu.
And today we are going to be sharing something that is really, really powerful, something really, really important. I think we always try and keep it real on this program, but today, maybe more so than others, we're really going to be keeping it real. So I'm going to start by putting you on the spot and ask you a question. So would you say that our relationship is better now? Maybe not better, maybe not use the word better, but I'm sure you understand where I'm going. Now than maybe 20 years ago? We've been married for 30 years. Would you say it's better now?
Is our relationship much better now than it used to be at some point in our relationship? Yes. Is it better now than it's ever been? That's difficult to answer, because right at the beginning, for example, it was just heaven on earth. But am I happy in our relationship? I'm more than happy, in our relationship, because things are calming down significantly. That I'm grateful for where I am in life.
Okay, I accept your answer. The reason I ask that question is because sometimes I think about, because today we're talking about us, we're talking about what's really helped us. And sometimes I think about the early parts, like you said, when we just started courting and even when we just got married, things were amazing. And I used to just wonder, how can it be possible that you would have such a beautiful relationship? But then things started to happen. But casting my mind back, I'm asking, what was really the problem?
The problem was life. The problem was life, because when we met, it was just you and I, and we narrowed our world to just you and I, and that thought, that feeling is just amazing. But then when we now became one, we have to deal with money, we have to deal with sex, we have to deal with families, we have to deal with joblessness, unmet expectations in life, church life. Life is complex. Pressures. And before you know it, all of those things are eating away from the realities that you had at the beginning. And the sooner you realize what's going on, that you can respond to it, the better. Otherwise, you're going to be wondering, I thought this was meant to make me better. It was meant to make me happier. I'm not. I just want to go back to how life used to be,
The reason I ask that question is because for most relationships, people, when they get divorced, actually, talking about divorce, we wrote a book called 30 Ways to Divorce Proof Your Marriage. This is us just sharing from our hearts. This is not textbook stuff. This is real life stuff, the things we've learned on our own journey and what's helped us continue to not just survive in our relationship, but to actually thrive. So I want to encourage you to pick up your copy. Just Google it. It's on Amazon. It's everywhere where good books are sold. Just get your copy. But the reason I ask that question is because very often when people get divorced, people cannot pinpoint what it is that broke the camel's back, as it were. Very often it's a culmination of things. They don't listen, all this, right? So, and anybody listening to them will think that's the reason you got divorced. But the problem is, like you just said, it's not one thing. And over time, I saw somebody do this experiment, held up a cup and said, how heavy, or when does a cup of water get too heavy? So you might hold it and the first 5 seconds is fine. The first 5 minutes is fine. But when you hold it for an hour, it can start to get heavy. And it's the same thing, you may say, oh, it's just this little thing here, this little thing here, this little thing there. But putting all of it together over an extended period of time, it becomes a mountain, not just a molehill. And I think for us, that was probably it. And there were lots of things, when the children came, for instance, that changed the dynamics of the relationship. When you have to take care of the child, and then you have to work, and then you have to cook, and then you have to be a wife, and you have to do the wifely duties, and in the end you'll think, I'm tired, and then the man wants some intimacy and you're too tired, and then maybe the man is saying, well, this is what we should be doing, and then you're thinking, but you're not being understanding, you should be more understanding that knowing all the things I have to deal with. And the man is going, well, you're not meeting up to your responsibilities, because this is a primary responsibility for the wife. Who is wrong, who is right? I think both are right.
Both are right.
Both are right, and in a sense, both are wrong, but it's just a question of the focus. So it just went on. And like you said, there will be times where we would, it would just be fine. Things would quieten down, and you would just kind of, okay, we're fine now, we're going along. And then it's like you hit another rough patch. And what we, I suppose, failed to appreciate was the role that the external factors were playing. Because when all of those things happen, what we tended to do, and I'm guessing that's what most couples do, is we project it on our relationship. So we now unhappy, you're unhappy, and you're thinking, he's the one not making me happy. He should be more understanding. She should. And not realizing it's all these other things that is eating into the relationship. So what was it that changed? For me, and I'm sure you'll say the same, for me, it was coming to that realization that trying to put the blame on the other person and trying to make them take ownership and responsibility for what's going on is just not going to work. That's not going to work. So whether it's an argument we're having, whether it's a discussion we're having, focusing on me and how I am showing up was a massive shift.
Absolutely. Somebody says nothing changes until you change. It can be tough. It can be tough. You go to a therapist and say, I'm not happy in my marriage. She, he, and then the therapist look at you and say, well, I'm sorry to tell you, but you have to change. What do you mean I have to change? She has to change. You have to call her and have a word with her. You have to change. And then that's not in any way saying that they don't have to change. But it means that change begins with you. Until you're willing to change, like I said, nothing changes for you. If you want the best, you have to give the best. Because what we tend to do is you do this, I do that. I'm reacting, and we are reacting to each other, to our negativity. But once we go beyond reacting to responding suggests that I'm taking responsibility. Therefore, I am responsible for what I do and say. It's hard. It's a lot to take on. It's a lot to digest. But until you come to that level, you would always justify everything based on the other person. I spoke because you spoke like that. I did this because you did that. I looked because you looked. I'm angry because you're angry. But I am responsible for my emotions. I am responsible for my actions. I'm responsible for my choices, and so on and so forth.
And the thing is, when you're in that space where you're saying, but it's your fault, you did that, it's the truth, right? So they said what they said that caused you to be angry. No doubt about it. Nobody can deny that. But the problem is, when you do that, what you're saying is every time they act like that, you're going to respond in the way you responded. Yeah. And so what that does is it just creates this cycle of animosity, of argument, of resentment, and it just spirals out of control. And so what you want to ask yourself is this what I want in my marriage? If the way you're acting right now is not giving you what you want, then you want to change what you're doing.
Yeah.
So when we say we want to share with you the one habit that changed it all for us, this is the habit. Are you ready? Okay. We decided to grow. we decided to grow. We decided to commit to our own personal growth rather than pointing fingers at the other person and saying, you grow, you change. We decided to grow, and you cannot grow without changing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are talking about change begins with you cannot grow without changing, and you cannot change without growing.
Yeah.
So our encouragement to you today would be to commit yourself to your own personal growth. Just pick one area. Pick one area. It might be in listening. It might be you realize that when somebody is talking, you don't actually listen to what they're saying. You're too busy formulating your own answer, right? It might be that you're always interrupting people when they're speaking. It might be that you might decide, okay, I want to grow in that area. You might decide, I want to be more controlled in how I speak. Because when people lose control, some people, they say anything, and then they apologize later. And the truth of the matter is, even though you apologize, unfortunately, your apology is not going to cause the other person to unhear what you said. You know, they're not going to have amnesia just because you apologize. So it might be, I want to control my tongue. I want to control my temper. All those are areas of personal growth. I'm telling you, when you start to grow personally, it will radically transform not just your relationship, but all of your life. You'll be more resilient. You'll be able to cope with stress better. And stress is one of the things that eats into relationship. When people are stressed, right? They don't know that they're angry because they're stressed, but you get at the drop of a hat, you get angry because you're stressed. But when you grow, you increase your capacity, your stress resilience, you increase your capacity to deal with stress. And by increasing your capacity to deal with stress, you're just a better person to be around. I was sharing with somebody, I think a women's meeting we had yesterday, and we were just sharing about things that we're proud of, you know, or things we consider to be a success for us for this year. I'm smiling because the example I'm going to give, the person that he relates to is in this room. So a few weeks ago in our church, one of the young men in our church took the initiative to set up a system for us to be able to record and broadcast live. There was a cable trailing right from the front all the way to the back. There was a table set up to the side. Everything just looked like, oh my God, a health hazard, and just didn't look very pleasing to the eyes. Now, if this was me, and I'm sure you will bear me witness, if this was me a few years ago, right there and then I would have gone to the person and said, we can't have this, sorry, you have to dismantle, we can't have that, we just that's how I would have dealt with it. You just can't have that, sort it out immediately. But I didn't. I waited to the end of the service. I went to them and I said, well done, great job. How can we improve on this? Because this is a health hazard. We cannot have this. And I left that and I thought to myself, you have grown. Right? You have grown. You don't deal with situations the way you would normally deal with it. So my question to you is, how have you grown? If somebody that hasn't seen you in 10 years sees you today, are they going to say to you, you're exactly the same? No, you don't want them to say you're exactly the same, unless they're referring to your looks, of course. If it's how young you look, they can say you're exactly the same. But apart from that, we don't want people saying we're exactly the same.
You know, like I said, change begins with you. You have to look into your life and do a very thorough and unapologetic auditing of yourself, and admit your strengths and admit your weaknesses, and begin to work on the areas of your weaknesses. Begin to work on those. Begin to improve on how you communicate, because it's not just going to affect your relationship, it's going to affect every area of life. How you're perceived, how you are liked or disliked. You know, some people are very brilliant, but they're just not liked. And it's not the devil, neither is it your mother-in-law, and it's not the village people. It's just because it's hard to engage with you. So if you work on how you communicate, how you do your body language, and somebody will say, that's how I am, this is who I am, take it or leave it. Well, people will leave it. Some people will put up with it, and that may be okay for you. But if you really want to go farther in life, you want to engage with intelligent people, you want to engage with people that matter, you're going to need to improve yourself. And you can say to yourself, well, I don't need any improvement. I am good the way I am. And God made me perfect. You are good. You are perfect. But there are areas of improvement. Identify those areas and begin to work on them today, you know.
Absolutely. So that's our secret. That's a big secret to our healthy relationship we have right now. Do we still have situations where we don't agree with each other? Absolutely. Do we still have conversations? You know, when I say conversations in quote, absolutely. But the way we handle it now is just more mature. So when you were talking about things are calmer, it's just more mature. We're just more, and the reason we're handling it in a more mature way is because we are both now more mature.
Yeah.
We're more patient. We're not judging each other. We're not accusing each other. We're not condemning each other. We're more accommodating of each other.
More responsible
for our choices. Our perception on life is changed. And here's the thing. Somebody said to me, well, not somebody, I heard John Maxwell say once, growth is a separator. And that's the truth. If your partner is growing and you're not growing, it's only a matter of time. There's going to be a separation, because the way they think is going to be different to how you think. The way they see things is going to be different. The things that matter to them are not going to matter to you. The things that matter to you is not going to matter to them. Do you see what I mean? So both of you committing to your continued personal development is the best thing you could do for your relationship.
Yeah. Somebody could be asking, how do I start? How do I begin with that? You know, like I said, start with your appraisers, you know. So this, I'm good at this and I'm not great at this. Or you ask your spouse, you know, what is it? What about me would you like changed? Because we had that conversation.
No, please don't ask them what do you want changed.
Yeah, we had that conversation.
But we didn't say it like that.
No. What we discussed was, we said, let's talk about our strength. I can't. We've done it a few times, but I remember on one occasion, what one thing or what two things should I work on that will make you a better person? You know, that kind of a thing. And it could be, I want you to spend time with me, or I want you to stop talking to me with your voice raised. You know, so that's something they will want you to change.
The area you want them to improve.
On, and go to YouTube, find how to communicate and be liked, or something like that. There are several books. There are materials, audio materials, like podcast that can teach you on how to control your emotions and choose your words carefully. Speak not so fast. You know, I'm getting into some of the tricks there. You know, don't just want to just pour out your heart. Speak slowly so that you're thinking about what you're saying and you're bringing the right words out. You know, so there are just so many materials available. I often say, if you are how you were 10, 15 years ago, that's a choice, because there are always materials, opportunities to change who you are. And somebody can say, but I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me. You could be fine, and there is nothing wrong with you, but there is a better you locked up somewhere on the inside.
And to be honest, if you're both fine and your relationship is sweet, nothing is happening that you're not happy with, then that's fine. You know, that's brilliant, that's awesome. But if you know that you're not entirely happy with the relationship, then please don't sit there and say, I'm fine. Because if you're saying that, then you're saying the issue is with the other person, and it never is just one person. It's usually both parties. So that's what we're saying. So consider some of the things that tend to trip you up as a couple. Is it that when you're not in agreement, all of a sudden it's an argument? Because you can be in disagreement without having an argument. So if you find that that's something that is repeated, if you find that that's something that repeatedly occurs in your relationship, then you know that, okay, we need to grow in the area of communication. The fact that we're not agreeing on something doesn't mean we have to have an argument about it. So look at the things that tend to trip you up. Is it that you're not patient enough? Just look at those areas and determine to grow so that there can be change in those areas. But we hope you've found that helpful. We hope you found that helpful. But if you have any questions, please put your questions in the comments. We would like to answer them. If you have not yet subscribed, do subscribe, do like, do share the video so that others can receive these teachings as well and benefit from them. And go check out 30 ways to divorce proof your marriage. Okay. Until next time, this has been Mary
and Julius Eniolu,
your hosts on the Relationship Real Talk Show, where we talk all things relationship, always keeping it real.
Thank you.